Hey, and welcome to Indie Social. This is the podcast where I, Dylan Yeager,
and Michael Huntington
interview independent filmmakers. Our guests come to our show to share with you, the audience, how they started their filmmaking career. And maybe, just maybe, we get to learn a little bit more about them on a deeper and more personal level. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Indie Social. Our next guest was born in South Korea, but made a name for himself here in Iowa. He is an actor, writer, director, stuntman, and fight choreographer. This is one man you don't want to meet in a dark alley, for he is a martial arts god. You've seen him in films such as Trafficked, Level Up, and the TV show Fallout. He also wrote, and starred in Briefcase. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Messersmith.
Woo! How you doing, Nick?
Oh, I'm good. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I am extremely happy to have you on here, man, because we worked on a short film recently, Alice, and I got to meet you, and yeah, dude, it was just great talking with you. So when we started up the podcast, I was like, man, we got to have Nick on there for sure, because you have such an interesting story of how you have been in all these things and how you're pursuing them, so we really wanted to kind of dive in.
And yeah, Nick and I been in contact with each other for the past few years, but this is the first time we've met, so this is really exciting. And you and I are going to be working together in Miles, the upcoming Spider-Man film being made here in Iowa.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. It looks fun, so, you know.
Yeah, it definitely looks good. I've seen all the teaser stuff, and I think it's going to be
Lost
something
Utopia
else.
Films, they do some pretty crazy, high-quality special effects.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Yeah, so Nick, kind of talk to us on what you're going to be doing in Miles.
I think I'm going to be playing just a thug character that shows up, I think, once or twice. There's 2 fight scenes, and then just doing some choreography and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and that's going to be really exciting. I'm playing the Shocker, so
good.
I'm really excited to see or have you guys, because when we our first meetup with the casting crew, it was before you were casted in it. We worked out some fight scenes, and I honestly had you in the back of my mind. It's like, oh, we just need like a fight choreographer here just to make sure this looks solid. And then when you were added to our group chat, I got super excited because like I said, I've been wanting to work with you for a long, long time.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, so let's start from how'd you get your start? At what point did you start getting into, stunts or acting or filming? What was kind of like your first jump into that world?
I went to film school originally because I wanted to direct. That was what I knew. I kind of wanted to do something in the film industry, and I would always watch kung fu movies or action films. And one thing that bothers me is when they get an actor that doesn't know how to fight, and they train them,
Right.
and then they go. Nothing against them; they do good. Matt Damon did a good job in the Bourne series, and Keanu did good in John Wick. But as a martial artist and someone that's trained, dedicate your life to it, it's kind of annoying when they do that. And so I would always critique it, and people would always say, "You should do that. That's what you should do." So I kind of looked it up, went to film school, wanted to get into directing, and I ended up going to Student Video Productions, this first meeting that they had. And these guys were making this show called Fallout. And I said, well, they were looking for crew. So I said, well, maybe I can just start like holding the boom or something. Just do something for them and get some experience so I can, end up directing. And then they said, well, we have this character. We didn't really make him ethnic specific, so he could be Asian. But they were like, we have this character named Zach. Would you want to play him? And I said, well, I've never really done too much like that or anything. So I said, well, I'll try it, and see. And ended up acting, and it was like, you know what, this is interesting too, because I think from when you learn about directing, you have a vision of the story, and then when you act, that vision, you have a vision of the story, but I think when you're an actor, it's more of you have the vision of your character and what your character and how they interact in this world, as opposed to that. So I started doing that, and I ended up liking it. The show was called Fallout. It was on for 3 seasons at the university. It won 11 Windfall Awards at the University of Iowa, which is like their Oscars, out of 14 categories. Is now, this last year was considered, it was inducted into the University of Iowa like Hall of Fame for TV shows. The longest running episodic TV show in university history, and one of the best, I think, considered one of the best TV shows in university history. It was 3 seasons, 26 episodes. So it was 9 in the first season, 8 in the second, and third, or 9 in the third.
So were those like hour-long episodes or 30-minute episodes?
Yeah, they were hour long. They would air on SVP every Sunday. It was once a month. And the third season actually is predominantly we filmed all in Chicago.
Okay.
So I remember going to Chicago once a month during my last year of college and doing that. So that was a lot of fun. And then after that, I really wanted to get into directing and fight choreography and stunts. And I did a couple of kind of short films and other films. And then then what happened was Rogue One released auditions a long time ago. And they said, we're looking for an Asian character, play this monk who's going to be blind. I said, okay. So I sent an audition tape because they were in London, and they said you could send them in. You didn't have to go to London. So I sent one in. Of course, I didn't get it because it was Donnie Yen. So, I mean, Donnie Yen, I'd choose him too.
Right.
But then the casting director ended up remembering me. And so there was this film called 2054. It's this like futuristic zombie apocalyptic kung fu film. It's like taking like a kung fu movie and putting it into a zombie film, into like Walking Dead type of thing. And it was kind of a cool concept. And the casting director remembered me and called me and asked me to be in the film. I didn't really know much about it. And then as I got the contract, it was like a Netflix film. It was like one of those things that's going to be on Netflix and everything. So it wasn't like an original, but it was one of those ones that after he did it, he was going to sell it to them and stuff like that. So I went down to Florida. It was in Palm Beach, and we filmed it. And I got there, and it had Chu Chi-Ling. He was in the movie Kung Fu Hustle. He had the rings on his arms and did all that cool stuff. He's been in movies with Jackie Chan and Jet Li, Bruce Lee, a lot of things. And so I just went on to play a really small character, a zombie, this soldier that gets bitten by a zombie, and then he turns into one, and just did minor things. I was supposed to be there for 1 day. I ended up being down there for 7 days. They asked me to stay. And stunts is a little different because stunts was like, if you perform a stunt and they like you, they're going to ask you to do more stunts.
Right.
So it's a little different than acting, because acting, you literally just get signed for that one job and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
With stunts, that if you, and so I kept doing all these stunts. And it just kind of went from there. And then after I got back from that, it was like I started doing a lot more. I kind of took a little bit of a break because I was teaching. I was teaching martial arts a lot and everything. But then I kind of said, you know what? I went to school for it. I spent all that money going to school. I should use my degree. So
how cool was it? Because that Netflix film, that was a big production, right?
Yes.
Like one of the bigger productions you were in at the time. How crazy was it to kind of like dream of being in something like that, and then to finally arrive there and you're kind of like on that big crew and that big set? Did you feel like...
Yeah. You know, it was different because a lot of the stuff I had done, of course, was here in Iowa. And Iowa films, some of them have big productions, some of them don't, you know, but none of them really had like a crew that was that big. I like went on there and like I literally thought it was like the whole just like cast and crew, and then I realized it's just the crew. Like the cast is still yet to, to be here.
Yeah.
And the crew is like, you have 20 PAs and you have, 6 sound guys, 6 lighting guys, you got 4 camera guys, you have... It's like, you have second unit, first unit. It's kind of weird. You kind of see all that stuff and how it works. And it's interesting. But then at the same time, you're kind of like, man, I can see why it was a lot of fun. I mean, I met a lot of people. And it's much different, though. I learned a lot of terminology that I didn't know before.
Sure.
I learned a lot of things.
And you learned a lot of roles, right? Like there's a director of photography. And under that, there's kind of like this ladder that kind of... Yeah.
And how it works, because when you're in Iowa and you make a film, the director, you just talk to everybody and you just do everything. And like in a real film, the director usually doesn't talk to anyone. He just talks to the DP, and then the DP will go and say, okay, we're doing this scene. And then he'll talk to lighting, and then he'll talk to sound, and he'll talk to all these people. So, or she'll, I guess we should say he or she, but
right.
The DP's more like, he's a lot more important than I thought. For me, it was always like, oh, I can shoot this myself, or I can do that. But you really learn the significance of a DP when you do a film like that and everything like that. So that was always fun. And then it's kind of weird too, because you think of a DP always shooting a film. But when we did fight scenes, they had like the second unit come in and do it, because one of the guys in second unit was more experienced with doing fight scenes, so he did that. Which is kind of weird because the DP kind of just like, oh no, you film this because I don't know what I'm doing really too much. So it's very interesting because then it's like it has this style, but then the fight scenes are very different style, and it goes back to the same style of film. So
is that film still on Netflix right now? Is it still available to view? Or is
no,
it like
actually,
Amazon,
it was on there for a little bit. They took it off. I think the director is he's playing it. He's trying to get it more of a mainstream. I think like playing it around. But I think if he only has a certain amount of time, and then it has to go back on. So I think it'll probably be back on. I think probably this winter.
Cool.
But he is doing a sequel to it, and he's talked about trying to maybe do the sequel in Iowa. Because he said he loves pictures of Iowa and everything. He's like,
that's pretty.
You guys have a lot of fields and open fields.
Yeah.
You can make it look like Asia and stuff like that. But I don't know. He wants to do it here or New York. So we may do the sequel here. I don't know. And fly him in and everything like that. So that might be something fun to do and everything. So
for sure.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities for some Iowa actors and stuff here too if they hold some casting calls.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the one thing. For me, I travel a lot, go to LA, New York, and Florida, and different things like that. But I would love to see Iowa. I would love their film industry just to kind of blow up. It used to be really good, and it still is. I mean, there's still good products out of here, but I just think that, being on set, especially in a Netflix film too, it was kind of funny when people hear you're from Iowa. They kind of go, wow, I didn't think any talent came from there. Like, you're really talented to be from there. You should move to LA or you should move to New York. And it's like, I understand what you're saying. There's more opportunities out there, but just because I'm from there, it shouldn't mean there should be less opportunities, because I think there's a lot of talented people in Iowa. We have a lot of talented actors, filmmakers, everything. And if they got a chance, I think if we could figure out a way to help the industry, I think it could be really good. Iowa's a great place to film. It's minimum wage is way cheaper. You could pay someone $10 an hour to work on your film, and you go to LA and it's like $33 an hour. So it's just like it's so much cheaper.
That's how I feel too, man. Like my dream is to be able to make a feature film here in Iowa and use a whole Iowa crew and everything like that. Because I don't know, man. Iowa has always been my home, and I always want to like represent film here because it's such a big thing for me.
I think it's only a matter of time. I mean, because we had some like serious talent that's in Hollywood now, like Ashton Kutcher, Elijah Wood, a lot of other people. Those are the first two that come to mind. But I think eventually, and I feel like it might be in the near future, like these big filmmakers and actors that originated in Iowa will start talking. And then it'll start getting people's attention. What's the actor, the Aquaman?
Oh, Jason Momoa.
Yeah, he's from like Des Moines, Iowa, or
something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, and it's just a matter of time. I feel like like you said, there's so much talent, and Iowa might be like the next like Atlanta, Georgia, Chicago. I mean, I think people are going to start coming here, and that's going to benefit all of us.
I think so too. It could be. I mean, I know it's very. I mean, we have a lot of like. I mean, think of all the fields that you have that if a studio came in and bought it, you could make an easy studio lot with sets and everything like that. I think it's a market that no one thinks about. I think when they think, we could make money here, I think they kind of exclude the whole Midwest and kind of say, we have to go to the coast, But
yeah.
I live on a farm. They could
exactly
buy that from me right now.
Exactly, sure. And I think I wish. There was a way. I don't know what it would take to help it, but I would love to see the Iowa film industry. I would love to sit in like 10 years and just kind of like look at Iowa and be like, wow, it's, in the film industry, have it, having almost like their own, Hollywood, have a place for where studios are and everything, and people are making television series or, television shows.
Well, like, dude, when I first started, man, I didn't even, like, I had no clue that people filmed here in Iowa. Like, I thought I would have to go somewhere else because I never knew it. I grew up in a small town, so, like, I didn't even know people were making films, and then I found Iowa Film, and I found all of these people, and I found out that it's not that uncommon to find a filmmaker here as long as you're kind of in that network of people who do it, so yeah, I definitely do think it's possible that stuff could blow up here in Iowa, and I
think it's a thing that the state has to figure out a way to keep talent here, because like Dylan was saying, like all this talent you have, they graduate or they leave and they go to LA or they go to New York. Jason Momoa, like you said, Ashton Kutcher, Elijah Wood, Brandon Routh, who played Superman, what's his name, who played Superman on Smallville from Iowa. We were discussing that because we just did that Superman film. We were discussing how many Superman are from Iowa. And it's kind of crazy. And it's like, the guy that plays the Penguin in the Gotham series, he's from Iowa.
Oh, really?
He's from over by, I think it's closer to Cedar Rapids, just kind of like Shoeyville area and stuff like that. So he's from Iowa. There's all this talent. Now, the new Top Gun director, is from Marshalltown. So it's like, we have all this talent, but they leave because I don't know what the issue is. I wish I could figure it out. What is it? The state? Is it just the project? I think also it's investors. We don't have people giving the money to filmmakers, so they have to go somewhere else to get it. I wish I knew what the answer was. And I know
there's some sort of like Iowa tax reason that I'm not too educated on, but I know that's another thing that
there's a tax credit fraud that really kind of like screwed things over for us here. But I know they're trying to work something out, but there was a lot more money being invested in a lot of these indie films being made here it just takes that one person to kind of screw it up for everybody.
I want to say this the nice way, but I think better quality films. I think films that are shot that are better quality and have more professional actors in them, or professional level actors. Not saying that amateur, but because there are some really good amateur actors out there, but more people that take acting serious and not just because I know a lot of filmmakers that too just like ask their friends to be in their movies and their friends don't and they don't act and it's like really bad acting and like that. But then there's like films that really take it serious and they cast real actors that take it serious, that want to do it. And I think we have a lot of that, and I'm hoping that now we're kind of getting more of that in the state. So I'm hoping that when people start seeing that, they can start saying, oh, you know what, there is something in Iowa, there is talent in Iowa, and I think unfortunately, and it sucks because it's a money issue, but I think it's going to take someone investing a lot of money of their own into a film, making a really good film, getting maybe not A-list celebrities, but maybe some B or C celebrities in there to do the film in Iowa, film it in Iowa, film with most Iowa crew, and using that and having that go out and getting distributed and doing really good. I think it's going to take that for people to start saying, oh, you know what, maybe we can go to Iowa,
I think that's really possible. Like the hard part would be to get somebody from Iowa to invest into such a big project, but there are so many talented people here in Iowa. Like I have this dream of, and I've actually had a real dream about this, where like every like talented Iowa filmmaker, like united, I guess you would say like the best director that's here in the Iowa film community, the best, the producer, the best writer, director, like we all just like team up and collide and make the best movie made here in Iowa. That would be so dope. But unfortunately, there's a lot of tension right now in the Iowa film community. Everybody's just and that's natural in this industry where we have to compete against each other to succeed. But I don't feel like any of us are obviously there's a reason why we're still in the Iowa film community, because we're not in LA making millions of dollars. So we need to work together.
Yes, exactly.
And team up so we can all equally succeed.
I think that's a big thing. There's a lot of cliques and a lot of people that only work with the same people, and they never want to branch outside of that group of people. And it's one of those things in Iowa. It's like, because when I first experienced it, was a lot of people in the Des Moines area only worked with them. They didn't really know anyone outside. And it was like, there's all these people. I mean, Eastern Iowa, especially the University of Iowa, you have film school there. Like, you should reach out, because I'm started using that and doing that and taking advantage of that, because you can get students to work on your film for free and just offer them credit for school.
Yeah, and I mean, especially film students, they just want experience.
Exactly.
They want to know what it's like.
And so it's like, if someone really wanted to do a big production, you could do that, and you could have 20 PAs all be college students, and you don't have to pay them because you give them credit for school.
And that's all they would want, almost.
Exactly.
So.
And DMAC has a films program now, so you can use that, so it's like there's opportunities there, and I think it's just, and also too, I think Iowa doesn't do a good job, and maybe it's collaboration or whatever, but they need to teach, I think, filmmakers and different things. I think they need to teach a lot of how the film industry really works, the processes of it. Because working out there, starting to talk to people, I had an idea of how I thought it worked. But then when you talk to producers and stuff, you have no idea how it works. I always thought, if I make a good movie, even if I'm not known, and I make a really great film, they'll buy it. And then that's not true, because the only way they're going to buy something is if they know they can make money off of it. And if you're this new person, even if you have a really good film and they say, we can market it, but they go, well, we don't know if I invest all this money in it to distribute it, how is it going to make money or not? So it's
because like distributing it and marketing it, like that costs so much money to do it and do it properly. So.
I kind of learned the process of it, and it's very interesting on it is that, when you write a script and you want to produce it, they say the best thing to do is to send it actually to somebody. If you wrote a role and you said, I picture Liam Neeson playing that role, actually send him the script. Sometimes there's a fee that you have to pay them to secure them to read it. Sometimes it's like $100 or $200, but you send it to them, or have your agent send it to them or whatever, and send it to their agent representative. And if they say, yes, I'm interested in it, then you can actually go to studios and say, look, this is the screenplay I've written. I have Liam Neeson who's read it, who's interested in it. And now they're saying, okay, if we invest in this and he's on board, we can make a lot more money because he's proven himself to do that. If you say, and also with the director too, if you say, I have a big director, or I have this director who's done it, they go, okay, he's got this together, we'll invest money in that film. And sometimes as your first film as a writer, you just kind of have to step back. I know a lot of producers said, like, sometimes as a writer for your first film, if you really want to make a lot of money, you have to literally just be the writer and step back. And even if you say, I want to be in the movie, or I wanted to direct the film, you kind of have to let somebody else do it. And you just get paid as a writer, take the writer's credit, and go. Because now you've already made this film. Now you've made a lot of money. They're going to say, okay, we want him to write something else. And then you'll have a little bit more power to say, I wrote this, but this is what I want. I want to be in this, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. Then they're going to be like, okay, we will let you do that, And that's the real way it works, And there's a lot of people, because I've had screenplays, I'm sure everyone has, and have tried to get them out there to studios and stuff, and you never get a call back, and you never get talked, because they're not going to just sit there and read an 80-page script and go, that was bad. So you really and it's like, if you know somebody, or you really just have to have the process, just say like, I have this person involved, I have this director involved, here's my screenplay and all that stuff. And generally they'll look at it then if they have a name that they recognize that's familiar. So it's for me, it's been a process of that. I learned a lot of that on set. Doing the Netflix film, kind of learning that. I talked to a lot of producers, and that was just the one thing. If any actor or anyone's listening, is just, that's the one thing, is if you get on a set like that, if you're fortunate enough, no matter what, even if you're just an extra, like, learn as much as you can, watch as much as you can, talk to as many people as you can, and also make friends. Like, I know so many extras that were out there that were like, I'm not going to talk to these other extras because I'm going to do this. It's like, but if you talk to them, like, you become friends, who knows, they may like land a starring role or a recurring role on another show. And they'll
remember you.
And they'll go, you know what, I worked with this dude, he would be awesome, you should get him. But if you were like a jerk to them, they're going to be like, well, don't get that guy, you know? So it's one of those things, it's just kind of like, be nice to everybody and just kind of learn, be willing to learn, and you kind of have to have thick skin. That was another thing too. So
I wanted to ask a question. A lot of people think with film school, since you went to film school, how much did it help you? Because I know like now kind of people are saying like, don't go to film school, just make your film. Do you think that going to film school is kind of like the right choice to make?
It's one of those things. Film school is one of those things. For me, it helped me because I learned a lot of terminology. I learned a lot of things. And you could do it without film school. I know a lot of directors who do it and they just kind of learn. And it's one of those industries that you don't have to have a degree in it. For me, I think film school for me was the biggest thing with film school was that I made a lot more connections. And the thing about film school is if we all went to film school together and we knew each other and we became friends and you got a job with Marvel and you got a job with DC, it's one of those things you'd be like, oh, hey, hook me up, and they say, we're looking for PAs. You could be like, oh, I got a buddy in Iowa that's looking, he'll be a PA. He'll just do it. And next thing you know, I'm on set of a movie just because I went to film school with you, And you don't get that if you don't go to film school. I mean, I'm sure you still meet other people, but I have like a network of friends. I have friends that are working, with that one of them that worked on Batman, another one that worked on, just because, and they just do something small, but it's like, them and you never know, like now they're leveling up, in the industry, and they may give you a job someday. Maybe he's going to direct or something. I'll be like, hey man, I'll just come and hold the boom, or I'll just hold the cord for the camera, just get me on set. So, it's like one of those things is film school helped me with that way with connections. It also taught me, I want the proper way to write a screenplay. Like that was one thing too, because there's a lot of screenplays people send me and it's okay, but there's a correct way of writing it.
Like a format.
Yeah, exactly. And that was another thing too I learned about like trying to submit a script. If it's not in the right format, they won't even look at it.
Yeah.
The producers will just be like, nope.
Well, there's so many like YouTube tutorials now. Someone should know how to write a script format. I mean, it's out there. The source is out there. Yeah, for sure.
But I would say if you have the opportunity to go to film school, do it, because you meet a lot of connections that can help you. Scott Beck and Brian Woods, those were two guys that wrote, A Quiet Place, have done a lot of stuff. And, they were at University of Iowa Film School at the same time I was. And I got to work on their first project they did for MTV. It was called their first Spread. It was about like this sexual disease that kind of spread through a Midwest campus.
I feel like I've heard of that.
Yeah, it was a big thing. It was like a made for MTV kind of short film. I just played a foreign exchange student in, but those guys, I mean, that was where they got their start, and they did that, and then now they're doing bigger things.
That are like the Russo brothers, the legendary Russo brothers.
Exactly, and Joe Russo going to Iowa's writing program, and it's just like you meet a lot of people through that, and those are the contacts, like I know like Joe Russo, when he did the Avengers, he had a PA, he had a grip and an electrician, all from Iowa. And it wasn't because he went to film school, because he went to writing school, but he had met them in film school. He had met those three guys when they were in there, and they had just like sat down at a cafe and talked one time. And when he was making this movie, he's like, oh, I'm going to get those three guys because I remember them.
You made that
so
connection.
It's like, film school does help, I think, I don't think it's necessarily needed, but I think for me as a director,
it helped you a lot.
It taught me what a director is and what a producer is. Because I think the word producer gets thrown around and
too freely.
Yeah. I don't think people understand what a producer, you do make a film, but a producer's sole job is to get money for the film. That's your job. And I think a lot of people think, because people always say, oh, you're a producer. And I say, look, first of all, I'm not a producer because I know nobody with money. I don't have any of those connections. So I'm not a producer. I'm a director. Because, and I think people don't understand. I think that term gets thrown around loosely. People say, I'm a producer. So if you're telling me you're a producer, I'm going to give you a script and say, get me money. And then they go, well, I don't do that. I'm like, well, that's not a producer.
Right.
You're a filmmaker. Because a producer, that's kind of something you do. And that's something I kind of learned about too, So, and you learn that in film school, kind of, each title, what they're responsible for and kind of what you're supposed to do, not. In Iowa, it's a little different because sometimes you have 6 roles. You wear 6 hats,
Yeah, definitely.
But on a normal set, that's kind of your role and what you do. So.
And I know that when we were working on Alice together, since you've been on a lot of production, you kind of said that it's nice to kind of step back and work on an independent film because it's a little more free, right?
Yes. Because when you do a big film, everything is like here, boom, we're done. And it's, you can have fun. But they're more about, we have a time schedule and we need to get this done. So if you're messing around on set, you're wasting our time and our money. So I was really nervous because you're like, I got to make sure I got everything, I get everything done, hit my line, hit my spot. so we don't have to do this 7 times, you know? So that was kind of really nerve-wracking. And then when you do an independent film, you don't want to waste anyone's time, and you don't want to waste filmmakers' time, but it's nice doing an independent film because a lot of them aren't quite as uptight. Like if you have to do it a couple times, it's okay. And a lot of times too, the acting on a lot of independent films, sometimes you're not working with these actors in Hollywood that say you have to do it this way. You know, they're kind of learning like you are, so they're more laid back too. You know, so that's a lot of fun. I like working on more independent films. After I did a couple of those, I was kind of like, you know what, let's go back to Iowa and do a few independent films. I think it'll give me time to relax and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when I was doing my research on you, I saw that you were born in South Korea, and then right before you turned 1, you were adopted and moved to America. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's like the story. Everyone always says, "Oh, you have an interesting story," because, being adopted is one of those things. It's the reason why I got into the martial arts. It's kind of my parents would always tell you, like my parents will be the first ones to tell you, they always say, we're the whitest people ever, and we didn't know anything about Korean culture, you know? So they go, the only thing we knew was that like Taekwondo was Korean. So there was like this Taekwondo school kind of where I lived, and they had signed me up when I was 5. Their idea was that I would learn a part of that culture and everything. And I was so shy that my dad had to do it with me for a little bit, and then he stopped doing it and I kept going. And I think it was one of those things, I think they thought I would do it for just a little bit and say I did it and then, be done with it. But I ended up doing it forever. Like after I started, I just couldn't stop. I did it. And then you realize there's college opportunities to get scholarships, and there's collegiate level. And then when 2000, the Olympics came, and the Taekwondo was introduced in the Olympics. So then it was kind of more of those things. So for a little bit, you kind of strive for that. And being adopted too, that was kind of an identity that I grew up in Iowa. And of course, Iowa has a lot of small towns.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a town, my graduating senior class had 24 people.
Yeah.
So I was like really the only kid of color in the school other than my sister and everyone else. So it's kind of like, that was what made me different, was that I did Taekwondo. I did a Korean martial art. And it kind of, that's also what influenced me to get into film, I think, because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I went to college, and I went to junior college for 2 years kind of to figure out what I wanted to do. And then my 3rd year, I was going to go to Iowa to film school, but my grandmaster taught at Iowa State, and he taught for 40 years at Iowa State. And in 40 years, he taught 35,000 students. And there's some movies made about him and stuff. He's very famous. He's very legendary. He has like the most amazing story, and I wish I could get the rights to his screenplay, because he came in 1968. He graduated from college, or from high school, and was going to go to college, but gave up his spot. In Korea, you have to serve 2 years in the military. Every male at the age of 18 has to serve 2 years, at least 2 years in the military. It's mandatory service. So he knew he was going to have to serve. So he served his 2 years and decided that he wanted to keep serving during Vietnam and help his country and serve his country. So he made the 68 judo Olympic team for Korea. He gave up that spot to re-enlist in the military, and he re-enlisted. But because of his training and his skills, they put him in special forces. So he worked for the Korean Secret Service.
Wow.
And he said that he'd be in a cell with like 3 other guys or 4 other guys he didn't know. And he's like, you'd literally have to like eat and like watch the other guys so they wouldn't stab you or do anything like that.
Man.
And so he served and did all that. And then 1972, he got out. Vietnam ended. 72, he got out, and he made the judo team again, the Korean Judo Olympic team again in 72, and got an opportunity to come to Iowa State University for some reason, and chose to come here instead, and gave up his spot again, came to Iowa State and started teaching in 1973. He started teaching at Iowa State, and he was there till 2013. And I saw him after my sophomore year of college. When I was about to transfer to Iowa, I saw him at a tournament, and he said, "You're coming to Iowa State next year." And I said, "No, sir, I'm going to go to Iowa." And he said, no, you come to Iowa State in the fall. And he was one of those guys that you know, when he tells you to do something, you do it. And so I was like, well, I really need to go because Iowa State doesn't have my major. And he said, choice is none. And he would always say, choice is none, which means, you know, if you're not there, you're in trouble. So I told him I was really late. It was probably like July. I was like, well, I can enroll, but I'm not going to get accepted because it's too late. So I told him, I said, okay, fine, I'll go and apply, but I'm not going to get accepted because I needed to do that a long time ago. He's like, don't worry about it. So I went home and I applied, and like 3 days later, I got a call, and I was just said, okay, you've been accepted. And so he emailed me and said, I'll see you in the fall. So I went there and I trained a year with him. And I always wanted to before he retired, I wanted to train. So I trained a year with him. And then that summer, because I was Korean, because I was adopted, he gave me the opportunity to go to Korea and train over there. Wow. So I spent a few months over there training with the Korean national team, Korean National Sports University, Yongin University, which is this really famous Korean college, doing all that kind of stuff and getting to do that. And then when I came back, I said, okay, I have to go to Iowa now because I have to focus. And so I went there, and then I transferred to Iowa and finished film school in a year and a half and then got out. So.
And you said you received your third degree or fourth?
Fourth degree.
Fourth degree. Black belt.
I was supposed to test for fifth a few years ago, but I didn't. For me, you know, it's funny because rank is a thing that in martial arts too. Rank, everyone thinks you have to be 8th degree or 9th degree black belt, and they always, you know, all these instructors promote themselves as I'm this degree. For me, it's not about rank, and it's one of those things that I want to learn, and if I have to rank up, I will. And I always told my grandmaster, you know, I will always get my 5th when you want me to.
So do you still train to this day?
I still train. I teach. I do teach a lot more. I taught for 7 years. I kind of took a break from film for a little bit and taught for 7 years. Ran the University of Iowa program and opened up 9 or 10 schools here in Iowa. And then once I built the program up enough, I had enough assistants that could go and teach those. So I don't have to teach as much. And so now I'm just focused on training and doing stunts and everything else. It's kind of like I have to keep my body in shape and keep your body strong. So now I am training a lot more. My grandmaster did Taekwondo, Hapkido, Judo, and I trained in those. Taekwondo was more my focus, but the other 2 I trained in. So now I'm kind of focusing more on those and kind of doing other things, you know, like other arts, I think other styles. So I believe that you can master a style, but you should be well-rounded, you know, because Taekwondo is all kicks. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're really probably not going to really even throw a kick in a real fight.
Right.
You know, so you should know boxing, you should know groundwork and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I'm working on and practicing. And, you know, I know a lot of people now want like film combat classes. You want to learn about fight choreography and learn about camera angles and stuff. So something that maybe I'll do, you know, maybe help people if they want or whatever. I have a few students that want to learn fight choreography and stunts, so maybe I'll teach
that'd be really cool if at some point you could have like a small program for people to learn to do fight choreography.
I would love to do it. I've spoken to Liz Gilman at the at Produce Iowa for the Iowa Film Office about doing that. She's kind of interested in that. Georgia has one. California has one. New York has one. So it'd be kind of nice to have one in the Midwest.
Absolutely.
People to come and learn stunts and do that kind of stuff like that. So
yeah, for sure.
You know.
So in 2012, I got my high brown in Seishin Karate Do, which is a hybrid martial art. Mm-hmm. So I am pretty well-rounded. And what's so funny?
Are you for real? Did you?
No, I'm for real, man. Yeah,
I never knew that about you.
I did not get my black belt though. My sensei had to shut down the class due to some personal reasons, and I was like only just months away for training for my black belt. So I mean, I think you and I should spar sometime, live stream it.
For sure.
I'm a little rusty though, so go easy on me.
No, I mean, and karate is one of those things. I've never done karate. I've taken a couple karate classes. Karate was never something for me. I never did it. It was for when I was growing up. I had this weird image because I was Korean. I could only do Korean martial arts. I could only do taekwondo. You know, and that was dumb. It was just when I was younger and going through an identity crisis and all that stuff. Then as I got older, I was like, well, that's stupid. You know, you can learn anything. You know, you can learn any. So I started training more and. Zelda, who was in Superman, and she's doing this film called Flex that I'll be directing soon. She's third degree in karate, and she's like one of the most badass like females that you can. I
saw that trailer. We'll definitely make sure to link that.
She does some crazy stuff and does some cool stuff and everything. So that's another film we're gonna be doing.
Yeah, so I wanted to actually talk about Superman and that kind of process because you have kind of an interesting story with how you were able to get that greenlit and kind of like start working on that.
Yeah, with Superman, I had commented on this Superman site. I just made a random comment, and then this random guy messaged me in my inbox and says, "Do you make movies?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he says, "Well, I have $20,000. Would you be interested in making a Superman fan film?" So the first thing I thought about was, you know, you can't make money off of a fan film. It's copywritten material. So I kind of looked up a lot of things, talked to lawyers and everything, and found out, you know, as long as we don't sell the film or do anything like that and make money that way, you can pay people for their time to do it. I mean, it's just like if someone mows your lawn, there's no law that says you can't go out and give them $100 for a service, you know? Right. So doing this film, we said, well, then we'll just strictly pay people for their time and for their services, you know, for their talent and everything else. So Zelda, we flew her in from New York to be in and do the fight scenes and everything. And so gotten to do that, and it was kind of fun. I wanted it to make it she was the only one from out of town. Everyone else was Iowa casted, Iowa crew and everything, and wanted to kind of do that. It was kind of a big, I think we had 8 or 9 on our crew usually. And then we had a big cast of everyone. We had Clark's, we had Superman, you know, I think this writer went into like characters that only Superman like people would know. Yeah. I mean, people never heard of, you know.
And man, the dude who is playing Superman is so good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Yes. I was lucky enough to be on like one of your final days, the reshoots, and just seeing him, man, he is a really great Superman.
He has that look.
Yeah, the cast that you have for that, man, is phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you know, he plays, his name is Dan Medeiros, and he plays Superman in the Iowa League of Heroes. So Iowa has this like League of Heroes. It's a group of kind of like cosplayers or actors that dress as their favorite superhero and go around to the hospitals and talk to kids.
Oh, wow, man.
And he's been Superman for the last 3 years. And so when I first started casting him, he had a suit. He has the Henry Cavill, like badass, like nice leather Superman suit. And I originally asked him, can we use that? And he said, well, it costs like $7,000 to get. And he goes, and it's really hard to move. So we were like, so then we just made that decision. We'll go with the Christopher Reeve style Superman suit. And when he first put it on, it looked really good on him. So we were like, yeah, we'll just stick with it. You know, it looks good. And then Mr. Marvel came and we created Mr. Marvel. That was another thing. If you copy something directly, you know, then you work about copyrights. But if you change one thing in there, it becomes like a parody. So then you technically don't have to worry about copyright infringement anymore. So Mr. Marvel was a made-up character. I know Shazam is also known as Mr. Marvel, but this one was John Stanley, so it was a little bit different. And so we just did the film, and originally it was supposed to be a short, 44 minutes, and we filmed it in 5 days. But then when we finished, we realized we had done an hour and a half film. We just did a full-length film in 5 days. So.
And now since you've wrapped, you're in the process of editing, and I know that there's going to be a lot of special effects. I know that you're an editor yourself, so are you taking a bulk of that work, or are you going to try to outsource as much as possible?
You know, we were under budget a lot, so we have a lot to hire editors and stuff like that. I will probably edit some of it. I will do some of the fight scenes. I will probably edit a little bit of it. But for special effects, we'll probably send that out, outsource that to somebody else that knows that, that was not my forte in film school or now.
Well,
but
I mean, that's definitely a talent that takes some time to master and do it
and
correctly.
Green screen, we green screened a lot of this for a lot of things and everything. And but I think it'll look good. Fan films are always hard because you want to try to be respectful and keep as close as you can to the content that you're fan filming. But at the same time, you also, as a director, as a filmmaker, you want to put your mark on it. You want people to know when they watch and go, oh, this guy directed this, So that was kind of a thing I kind of tried to figure out, like, how do I put my mark on this that will be different, that will make it different from that. So hopefully people will enjoy it. It's a little bit darker of a story about Superman. But I think everyone will be good. It was a good cast to film and everything.
I mean, it definitely was. So.
And then it was like we were making the film, and as we were making it, one of my PAs goes, "Look, they're making Spider-Man here too." And I said, "Oh, well, there you go." We're doing
at
DC.
the same location.
No, we just had seen a trailer that they had put out for Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
And so one of my PAs showed me that, and I was like, "Oh, well, we have a DC and we have Marvel here, so that's good." And I was like, hopefully, Iowa will just kind of, I would love to see. I don't find fan films are great, and I love fan films, but I wish. I like to do original stuff just because I think that'll be the way to put Iowa on the map.
Sure.
Field of Dreams, I know they're doing this next year. They're doing that anniversary thing where the White Sox and the Yankees are actually playing on the field.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
There's only a limited people. It's only going to seat 5,000, I think, the people. But they are playing it next year. I think Kevin Costner's coming. James Earl Jones is coming back.
Wow, man.
So that might draw some people, and maybe, hopefully, maybe the film world somehow can get involved with that somehow or something for that movie.
And we're really hoping this podcast really, expands out, because we have so far 20 filmmakers that contacted us wanting to be on our show, and we have 9 scheduled. But if this podcast starts, getting out there, I really think this would help.
I mean, that's definitely what we strive with this podcast, to try to
it's
let
good.
People know it's possible.
It's a great thing for filmmakers, I think, because that's the biggest thing, as you guys know, as filmmakers and as actors, is like, once we've done something, it's getting it out there to people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's the hardest part, you know, especially if you have like 200 friends on Facebook and your social media, it's like, 200 people, it's all my family. They're going to watch it anyways. It's like not a big deal. So it's like having a platform where you can kind of reach more people and get it out there is a good thing. So
absolutely.
And as we stated in the first episode, this is like the filmmakers and actors chance to kind of like in a way market themselves, because like a lot of people know who we are but don't know our story, and this is in a way the listeners can get to know you. Hopefully will spark some more interest too. I was like, I listened to Nick on Indie Social. He sounds like a really cool guy. I learned a lot more about him. We got to get him on our show. Really hope this benefits a lot of people. But unfortunately, we are getting a little we're running out of time.
As we're kind of closing up here on this episode, we've been kind of ending it with like inspirational way to, we kind of are having our guests kind of like give some inspiration. So do you have anything to maybe that filmmaker who's wanting to make that film, or the actor who's wanting to act in these films? What kind of advice would you give them?
There's a young Nick right now listening to Indie Social. What kind of advice could you give this young individual to inspire to chase his dreams?
I think chasing your dreams is always a good thing, and you should never give up on that. I think that the best thing to do is if you love something, you have passion for it, study it. Learn every aspect of it. Don't just learn acting. Don't just learn directing. Learn every single aspect you can. Know everything. Know terminology, everything. And then from there, just learn the process and learn and go through it. And also, don't be afraid to start at the bottom, because that's the one thing in the film industry. Like, if you're respectful and you pay your bumps and you do what you're supposed to do, people are going to notice. They're going to say, you know what, that guy works really hard. We should give him a different job. Or that guy works hard, I'm going to hire him again. It's one of those things. Don't be afraid, because I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm not going to do that. I just want to do this. And it's like, well, that's like a job that's higher paid, and those guys have done it for a long time. So I would tell you, learn everything you can. Don't be afraid to do anything. Don't be afraid to be bold. As you know, as actors and filmmakers, we should be more out there, more bold, to be able to promote and talk, and work as hard as you can and do everything that you can, and don't let there's always going to be those negative people, and don't let them get you down. I think that's the number one thing. Have a thick skin and take constructive criticism and take it and learn from it. And anything else, just kind of block it out, So that's what I
Absolutely.
would say.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick.
Awesome,
for coming
guys.
to our
Thank you
show.
so much
guys.
for coming on here.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, that's it.
And thanks everybody for listening to ND Social, and have a good night.